So the topic of my talk, as you can see on the slide in front of you, is integrating risk management with identity and access management and SIEM for stronger security. And at the outset, I would like to point your attention to the keyword here, risk management. Because ultimately, that's what it's all about. It's all about risk management. It's simple economics, really. Economics 101. You have these scarce resources. Now, these resources could be technology, it could be money, of course, or it could even be people. But resources, no matter what they are scarce. And you have to allocate these resources in the right manner, in the right areas, to make a difference for your organization. How do you do that? That's where risk management is going to play a role. There are so many different technologies to adopt, including IAM and SIEM, when it comes to your cybersecurity. But then, how do you make a decision as to where you want to allocate your resources? Again, that's where risk management comes to the fore. So there's got to be a way, either qualitative or quantitative, for you to assess your risk. If it's quantitative, it's even better. But qualitative, it's still okay. It's a good starting point if you're at the nascent stages of risk management. But whatever it is, there's got to be a way for you to assess the risk and then prove to your management that this is where you are in terms of your risk exposure. And you would like to take it down to a certain level. You want to decrease your risk exposure. And for that, you need to make certain investments in tools and technology or even people. And then once you do that, your risk exposure is going to be at a lesser level. It's going to be at a lower level. And you'll be able to prove that to your management. And that's when you get the budget. So if you are in cybersecurity, you could even be in compliance, you could be a compliance analyst. If you take a risk management sort of an approach, you can take your security game to a different level altogether. So that's what I'll be talking about for the next 40 or so minutes. I'll also be touching upon IAM and SIEM and certain technologies that have been adopted as we go through this. Now, before we get into the actual topic itself, there are a couple of cyber attacks that I would like to talk to you about. The first is this attack that happened in Collins Aerospace not too long ago. It happened just 2 weeks ago, September 19th to be exact. And what really happened was these airports, right? You had Heathrow, Brussels, Berlin, and other airports across Europe. Well, the flights over there, they got grounded, or there were huge delays. People had to go back to the old manual way of doing things. There were long queues, and in case a passenger had to be onboarded or their baggage had to be checked in, well, it was a huge problem. What really happened was a cyber attack on Collins Aerospace. Collins Aerospace itself was a subsidiary of RTX, which is a major aerospace and defense technology provider. It's an American company. But they have operations all over Europe, and all of these different airports were afflicted, and ultimately that resulted in passengers being grounded. In the back end, what happened was there was this new system. It was a software, and in the beginning, the vendor said that it was a cyber disruption. But what really happened was ransomware. The ENISA, they came out, they did their investigation, and it was proved that it was ransomware. Now, in any ransomware, it goes through multiple stages. It all starts with that initial access, or even before initial access. See, initial access is when an attacker gets onto the system and how they get onto the system. Even before initial access, there is this step a lot of attackers do. It's called reconnaissance. A lot of cyber attackers nowadays do that. They do reconnaissance where they go and they try to find out more information about their target. They want to know what types of tools they use, what are their defense mechanisms in place, what is the software they use. So there are different ways of doing that. They can even go on social media and figure out about the employees that work in that particular company. They can do a whole lot of things, that is reconnaissance. And once reconnaissance is done, they may let loose a phishing attack, and it could all be from an email. And once the person clicks on that email, it could be either a malicious link or it could be an attachment, a malicious attachment. Once the person clicks on it, that's when that initial access happens. Once they get onto the network, there could be multiple different things. There could be lateral movement, there could be privilege escalation. There could also be defense evasion, where they try to kind of cover their traces. Perhaps go back into the file servers and delete all the activity logs, for example. That's defense evasion. And then they would start encrypting the files, and then of course the ransomware. So there's a whole lot of different processes that happens when it comes to a ransomware attack. And what really happened here was, with the investigation, we found that multi-factor authentication, which is one of the basic things to do, it was not configured. And that seemed to be a loophole, a gaming loophole that the attackers kind of took advantage of. They got in and they kind of went deeper into the network. So with any ransomware attack, these are other things that you need to keep your mind on. Unexpected IPs. So there is also a part of the attack where an attacker could be remote and they are communicating with the network, with systems within the network, and you have these unexpected IPs that are making contact. Is there a way for you to know whenever that happens? As and when there's a communication between any user in the network to any malicious IP, is there a way for you to know? Is there suspicious admin console logins or privilege escalation? You need to know all of that. There's one other attack that I would like to talk about, and this happened about a year ago, 25th October 2024. The Heritage Open University ransomware attack, where 813 GB of personal data, academic data, financial, health data was leaked into the dark web. Now, why is this a concern? Well, of course, it's ransomware, but when you have a case of all of this data leaking into the dark web, it makes it that much more sinister. Not only are you under attack right now, but that data that got leaked into the dark web, well, that can be used for future attacks. It could be yet another attacker coming into the dark web and scoping for information and getting a hold of it. It can be used for so many things. Which is why, let's say that a user's credential is leaked in the dark web. Is there a way for you to know that it's been leaked? Can you know in real time, or at least close to real time, that a particular user's credential has been leaked in the dark web? That's something that you've got to keep in mind. Which is where a SIEM comes to the picture, right? So a SIEM solution that is able to connect to these threat intelligence sources. For example, something like Constella. So Constella is a threat feed provider that is able to see that a particular user's credential has been leaked in the dark web. Is the SIEM solution that you deploy able to connect to that and is able to alert you in real time that a user's credential has been leaked in the dark web? Or let's say that you have yet another threat feed, Bright Cloud as an example. Are you able to know if a malicious IP is making communication within systems in the network? Are you able to know that in real time or close to real time? A SIEM solution is able to connect to that sort of a threat feed too. Because ultimately, if you think about it, that's what a SIEM solution does, right? It's able to connect to different systems, different devices within the network. It could be a heterogeneous network. You could have so many endpoints, you could have file servers, you could have web servers, you could have cloud applications, cloud infrastructure, and so on. A SIEM solution is able to connect to all of that and then bring in all of that information, correlate all of it, and then give you the bigger picture. Not only is it able to stop attacks in real time by giving you the bigger picture, it's able to weave different things together and give you that bigger picture. But even after an attack has happened, it should be able to respond to the attack. So from within the console itself, either manually, as a security analyst, you have to be able to run playbooks to respond to the attack, or better yet, if you can do it automatically. So you have rules in place that if a particular condition is satisfied, then a particular playbook runs. Are you able to do that? So across that entire chain of an analyst workflow is what a SIEM solution is able to do. Right? So how does it start? Well, we spoke about these attacks. There's got to be a way for you to get alerted when something less than ideal happens. That's step number one. Then there's step number two where, okay, you've got an alert, something bad has happened, you've got an alert. You go ahead and investigate that alert. That's step number two. A SIEM solution is able to help you with that. Once you investigate, you'll have to prioritize, right? So you've done the investigation, you get more information. You've got to be able to prioritize which of it you want to look at first, because not every alert, not every incident is supposed to be treated equally. The resources are scarce at the end of the day. And then ultimately respond. So now that everything has happened, are you able to respond to it in such a way that the effects, the ill effects of whatever attack it is, it's minimized. Once you respond, of course, the fifth step is learning about the attack. So the entire thing has happened, how do you learn from it, how do you ensure that such a thing does not happen again, or the same thing does not happen again. That is when you're actually getting more mature in your cybersecurity. So that's what the role of a SIEM is. And these are some of the capabilities, the top capabilities of a SIEM. And we spoke about all of this. One thing that I would like to talk about here is the minor attack framework. How many of you here know about the minor attack framework? Okay. We have a few hands. Great. So the minor attack framework, when it was released in the year 2015, so it's been around for the last 10 years. And over the last 6 years or so, more and more organizations I see around the world, a lot of our customers are also using it. It's where you have different tactics and techniques that attackers use. There are about 13 different tactics, all the way from that initial access that I spoke about to the final impact, the adverse effects that an attack has upon an organization. You have 13 different tactics. And then you have a multitude of techniques that attackers can perform within each of those tactics. So a good cybersecurity solution should be able to look at what other activities are happening within your network and then map it to the minor attack framework. So defense evasion, for example, is a technique. Are there telltale signs of a defense evasion happening within your network? And if there is, can the security solution that you have, can it map that occurrence to the list of events that can be related to that defense evasion? The other is compliance. So Alexia also spoke about some of the compliances. So did Chris. So some of these compliances are obviously extremely critical for Europe and Cyprus as well. We have things like the NIS2 and the DORA. The NIS2 is more of an open framework where laws are supposed to be passed in every country, whereas the DORA is supposed to be followed word by word. Right? So, and of course you have other compliances such as GDPR and ISO 27001. These have been around for quite a few years now. So you have all of these occurrences taking place in the network. Can we relate those occurrences to particular articles of these compliance requirements? So for example, let's say that a very simple example, you're supposed to know, like, whenever a particular login happens to a critical system, can you, at a click of a button, can you get a report that says when that login has taken place? It's a very simple example, but that gives you a log of all the logins into a critical server. Are you able to get that? A SIEM solution is able to give you all of that as well. When it comes to IAM, Identity and Access Management, here we are taking a more proactive approach. Not that we are not taking a proactive approach with SIEM, but you have to understand a SIEM is more about detection. So you have the telltale signs, right? So it's always looking for something going wrong, and then a SIEM acts. So you have your automated routes or you have manual rules that you yourself have configured, and you're looking for any incident where those rules are satisfied. That's what a SIEM does. With an IAM, it is a little bit more proactive. It's more about policies. You have the right permissions in place, for example. So let's say that it's all about authentication. Have you enforced multi-factor authentication? That's the simplest thing to do, even for a zero trust principle, multi-factor authentication. You also have something like called SSO, single sign-on. With MFA and single sign-on working in tandem, working together, that's when you become doubly secure. And an IAM solution is able to help you with that. Apart from this strong authentication, you also have something called adaptive authentication, where depending upon the realities of a particular login, are you able to do something called step-up authentication. Let's say a user is logging on from a remote location where they are not known to log in from, or they're logging in from a different country. The IP is recognized as coming in from a different country. In that particular case, are you able to have a different kind of authentication? Maybe you have 2 factors of authentication or 3 factors of authentication in that case. Better yet, are you able to look at the risk score of the user over time? So you have a measure for the risk score of the user. And when that risk score goes beyond a certain threshold, that is either set automatically by the system, or you have configured it in a manual fashion, whatever the case may be. Depending upon that risk score, are you able to do some sort of step-up authentication? These are things that an identity and access management solution can give you. You also have something called least privilege or role-based access control. Maybe you can give me an example of a role-based access control. Any idea anyone wants to talk about role-based access control? Yes? Yeah, right. So administrator or local user can do it. Depending upon your role, exactly. So depending upon your role or the function, the department that you belong to, you get access to certain resources. You can also have slightly complex use cases here. For example, let's say something that happens in any organization. You have these projects and users from different departments work together, they collaborate. So let's imagine for a moment that this part of the room, like you are the sales team, and the rest of you guys are the marketing team, and you both are going to work together. Let's say you have a project that you're going to work on, and this project is going to run for 1 month. It's going to run exactly for 30 days. And you folks from the marketing team, you need access to certain resources that the sales guys have in general. So they typically have access to those resources. The marketing folks, you don't. But for that 1 month, you need that access. You need to access those resources. So how do you do that? There's got to be a way for you to, request those permissions, request access for those resources. And then once that time, elapses, once that 1 month, goes by, those 30 days elapse, there's got to be a way for you to automatically, remove those permissions. There's got to be an approval process in place when you first get those resources or access to those resources. And once that 30 days are done, you get revoked. So how do you manage that? That's role-based access control. Another thing is also just in time. So just when you need it, you get access just when you need it, and you get the access is revoked as soon as that you don't need those accesses to do your job anymore. Just enough access is kind of related. It's where it is not about the time itself, but about how much of access do you need. So let's say that there is a particular resource and there is a lot of information over there. Do you need all of that information, or do you just need partial information? So that is about just enough access. Lifecycle management is about the entire, as the name says, the user lifecycle. Right from the time the user is onboarded onto the network, they probably, within the organization itself, they change roles over time. Let's say they have spent a considerable amount of time within the company, maybe they have been there for a decade, and they have changed roles or they have gotten promoted, they get access to new resources. Now you don't want to be in a situation where there is privilege creep. So over time what typically happens is, a user gets access to more and more resources, maybe they have changed functions, and they still have access to the resources that they used to have, which is not ideal. It's a gaping loophole, right? And it could be exploited by attackers. It could also lead to insider threats, and you don't want that to happen. So you want to ensure that all of that is taken care of automatically. And then ultimately when the user leaves the organization, so let's say that the user has gotten a new job or whatever it is, they leave the organization, is there a way for you to automatically disable the account? And then maybe after a while, delete the account too. So how do you manage that in an automated fashion? So prevention and detection together, that's where IAM and SIEM go hand in hand. You want them to go hand in hand. So yes, we've just spoken about both IAM and SIEM, but I want to go back to the earlier point that I was making, and it's about risk management. So adopting these technologies is well and good, but there's got to be a way for you to prove to management that you do need these technologies or any other cybersecurity technology that you want to adopt for your organization. And that's where risk management comes into play. There are two questions that you need to ask typically. Question number one is, given your limited resources, are you confident that your initiatives are addressing the largest security risks to your organization? And many people here, when they come across question number one, they would say yes, because people think that they are doing the optimal investments. There's nothing to suspect that it's less than ideal. But then when you ask question number two, that's when there's a roadblock. How do you demonstrate that your initiatives are addressing the largest security risks to your organization's assets? So this is where you need to prove to your organization that what you have in place is actually making a whole lot of sense for your own security use cases or your risk use cases. That's when you want to either qualitatively or quantitatively prove to your management. At the end of the quarter, or at the end of whatever time period you have for monitoring, if you're able to prove it from a personal standpoint as well, it's very good. You can actually prove to your management that your work has resulted in so and so decrease in risk. Which is where we come to this concept of a risk heat map. It's very qualitative in nature, but it's a good starting point. The better way of doing things is quantitative, and we'll be spending some time on how you get started with that as well. But in case you're at the very nascent stages of risk management, this is a good starting point, where you look at this 2D grid called a risk heat map. On the x-axis, you have the business impact, and on the y-axis, on the x-axis you have likelihood or the probability, and on the y-axis you have the business impact. You have it going from very low all the way to very high on both sides, and you're just plotting different risks over here. So let's say that you have identified ransomware is one of the critical risks for you, and it actually ranks very high in terms of probability, and it also ranks very high in terms of, or high in terms of the business impact. This is something that you have identified. Then you know that this is the most critical thing that you have to work on for the next quarter, and you'll be looking for ways in which you want to move this maybe down here. So at the end of 3 months or at the end of 6 months, whatever the time period may be, are you able to move that particular risk that you've identified as critical in the right direction? That is what you want to look at doing. Now, how do you do this? How do you actually plot this? Again, this is very subjective. And believe it or not, a lot of this information exists within you, or exists within your own department. This is where you just go and survey people. You just kind of pick their brains. There's got to be a formal survey that you run. And you ask them for probabilities, and you ask them for business impact. And then come to grips with what that particular risk means for you. So you have this risk register, and for this risk, for all the risks that you identify within that risk register, if you can come up with a heat map, you know where that particular risk lies, and you'll be able to identify the most critical ones. And you know, well, this is the risk that you want to plug, or this is the most critical risk that you want to address in the coming period. And in this way, it can be a data-driven decision tool. So with this heat map, you know, you can prioritize it and you can start addressing those risks. When you address those risks, obviously, one of the decisions that you need to make is, well, yes, you know, this seems to be a risk that I want to address, and maybe I would need a SIEM tool or an IAM tool. And once I plug that risk, or I reduce that risk using a SIEM or an IAM tool or any other cybersecurity solution, the risk is going to come down by so much, by this delta. It can also work the other way. So let's say for a compliance use case, you already have an IAM and SIEM solution in place. Now, believe it or not, a lot of our customers are also doing this. You can also use an IAM and a SIEM tool to feed into your risk heat map. So you can get a lot of this information from your IAM and SIEM tool, for example. The number of accounts with MFA enforced versus not enforced. So it can give you a complete status of your network, where the gaping loopholes are or the weaknesses are. Number of privileged accounts versus least privileged enforcement. What is the percentage? Number of failed login attempts. So a lot of these things, the current status of your network, your IAM solution can give you. And when it comes to SIEM, you can get a whole lot of other information. The frequency of credential abuse alerts. Are there particular techniques from the minded attack that attackers are waging against your organization? And if so, what is the quantity? You are able to get all of that information from a SIEM tool. Volume of anomalous logins. Is there occurrences of impossible travel? Impossible travel is a login that happens in country A, and within, let's say, 10 minutes, a login that happens in country B. That's impossible travel, or they call it a land speed problem. Unusual devices, lateral movement privilege escalation, data exfiltration attempts. Are there examples of data exfiltration that happen? Do you know what Cloud Access Security Group is? CASB. A CASB solution. Yes. So now CASBs have been around for, let's say, about almost a decade, but it has been used for as much as a decade. The analysts from Gartner, they came up with this concept of Cloud Access Security Broker back in 2012. But probably by 2017, 2018, that's when a lot of cloud migration started happening. And of course, all of this got hyped during the COVID era, and now cloud is all the rage, right? Everybody is on the cloud. Now imagine a situation where there's a trusted employee within the company, and they mean well. They don't have any bad intentions. They just want to be more productive, and they email themselves, to their personal cloud account, some sensitive data. So maybe they want to work on that data from a remote location, or they want to work from a coffee shop, or whatever it is. They email that sensitive data. So is there a way for you to classify that data as sensitive before the fact? And even before you classify it, is there a way for you to discover the data? So data needs to be discovered wherever it may reside in the network. And then you need to classify it as, let's say, sensitive, business critical, non-sensitive, and so on, or public, whatever the case may be. So you can have all of these different tags for the data that you discover. And then whenever some activity happens on that data, whether it's being moved, it's being uploaded, either through a personal cloud account, maybe Box or Dropbox, or they email it to themselves, to their Gmail account, or it could even be a case of user A sharing that data to user B over chat. So all of these, whenever sensitive data is involved, it could be a case of risk. So is there a way for you to stop that? Not just get alerted about it, but actually stop it when it's happening. So you can look at classification and then stop it, or you can even look at the quantity of data. So let's say that a very large quantity of data in terms of the size, the data size, that gets transferred, it's data in motion. Are you able to stop it right there? Now when it comes to CASB, that's the use case I'm talking about right now. You could have cases where the user is either within the organization. So let's say the user is within the organization and the data transfer obviously happens to a cloud. So you need to have some sort of mechanism at the periphery of the organization so that when the data moves, it hits that periphery. So you have a proxy server. That's what your CASB is, the Cloud Access Security Broker. And obviously, as it is moving from within the organization to the outside, to the cloud, it is able to monitor that. So that's what we call a forward proxy, moving in this direction. What are the users remote? This is obviously not going to work, right? So if you have a server in the periphery of the organization, the user is anyways remote. And let's say the user is again uploading some data into the cloud, into the personal cloud account. This is where you need a CASB to be powered by a reverse proxy. So that no matter where the user is, even if they are working out of a coffee shop or they are working out of a home, you are still able to get all this information of what is happening, and you're able to apply those policies using the reverse proxy CASB. There was a time that CASB solutions were treated differently, so it was a different solution altogether. But in ManageEngine, for example, what we've done is we've brought in CASB within our SIEM. So the CASB is a part of our SIEM offering, which is called Log 360. Okay, so we just spoke about risk management and some of the solutions that you can probably adopt once you make a very convincing use case for your management that yes, I need a SIEM solution, or I need an IAM solution, I need a CASB solution, whatever the case may be. You first have to prove that, and we spoke about some of these, right? But how do you take your risk management to the next level? Well, that's where you quantify the risk. So this is about risk quantification. This is even better than the qualitative way of looking at risk. This is where you actually have a number attributed to your risk. So where you had things like high, medium, low earlier, you have a number for the risk over here. That's the quantitative way of doing things. And you don't have any number. You're going to look at probabilities. You're going to look at probabilities of a risk manifesting itself in a given time period, let's say the next 12 months. In the next 12 months, the risk of ransomware, well, it is going to be so and so %. And the way you do that is not deterministic in nature, it is more stochastic. So you would not have a percentage like, or a probability like 20%, but you have a range. Because there is no way you can clearly and definitely say that the risk is going to be 20% in the next 12 months. So you have to go with a range, and you say, let's say, in the next 12 months, the risk of a ransomware attack happening. Sorry, let me quickly. So we are all in IT, so we totally understand this. I should not be skipping, right? So let's say in the next 12 months, it's going to be from between 15 to 35%. That's the risk of ransomware. And what is the impact of that ransomware going to be in terms of currency value, in terms of euros? Well, it's going to be, again, a range. You can't say for sure that it's going to be 100,000 euros, but you may be able to say that it's going to be between 90,000 and 120,000 euros in case the risk was to manifest itself in that 12-month time period. So it's a range that you're working with, and there are resources available. The model itself is called Factor Analysis of Information Risk, and they look at multiple different elements within that. So they look at things like productivity. So are you actually able to do your work? So in case you're a manufacturing company and you're in the business of manufacturing widgets or whatever it is that you manufacture, are you able to do that? So that's one element of it. Are the different departments of your company able to do their job? That is, responsible for different functions. Replacement, obviously, whenever something happens, whenever a threat actually happens, there may be assets that may be damaged. You may have to replace some assets. That's yet another element. You have fines and penalties that can be levied on your organizations because there are judgments in place or there are mandates in place that you have to adhere to. Things like DORA or NIS2. Competitive advantage, especially when intellectual property is involved. So let's say that you have trademarks or you have some intellectual property, and because of this particular attack, that intellectual property gets encrypted or it gets stolen or it gets tampered with. All of that has a cost, and it has a competitive advantage cost. If it gets into the wrong hand, you no longer have that competitive advantage. Your reputation, of course. So you can see that there are certain things that are more tangible in nature and certain things that are more intangible in nature, but the fair analysis of this model takes into account all of these and then ultimately lets you arrive at that risk score. So the entire risk itself is looked at as loss, event frequency, and loss magnitude, and like I said, these are ranges and not absolute numbers. And then it gets further divided into threat, event frequency, and vulnerability. And loss magnitude gets divided into primary loss and secondary loss. Secondary loss itself is divided into loss, event frequency, and loss magnitude yet again. And the way this model works is, you'll have a number or some sort of a probability or a currency value for each of these. And then you will work backward to arrive at that risk. Now, how do you do this? Well, there is something called a Monte Carlo simulation. Once you run that Monte Carlo simulation, and if we can always talk more about it during the break if you're interested. Once you run that Monte Carlo simulation, you actually get a graph. You get to see a graph, and you get to see that there's so much probability that in case a risk was to come true within the next 12 months, whatever time period that may be, the probability, there's so much probability that you would actually be losing so much, in terms of money. That's what that Monte Carlo simulation is going to tell you. And then you have a very compelling model in place that you can then take to management, and you say that, well, this is the investment that I need to do in order to take care of this particular risk that our organization is exposed to. So that's how this actually works. These are some of the top security operations use cases that we've seen. Now, you can see that a lot of these use cases are well intertwined with different techniques that attackers may use in a particular attack. So even if we were to talk about a DDoS attack or a ransomware attack, whatever the case may be, a lot of these use cases may be a part of it. So when you have a SIEM solution, there's got to be a way for you to actually program these, or in case it's not going to be programmed, or in case it's not going to be manually configured, the SIEM solution itself automatically does it for you. So things like anomalies, authentication anomalies. So this is where you have user entity behavior analytics, UEBA. So you're able to look for patterns that are not really expected. When it comes to these anomalies, right? So primarily there are three types of anomalies. You have time anomalies, count anomalies, and pattern anomalies. With time anomalies, what happens is it's going to look at time as being the dimension. A user account logs in usually between 9 and 10 a.m. every morning. But on a particular day, they log in at 12 midnight. Now that's a huge time anomaly, and the deviation factor is also pretty high. So you need to get alerted about that, one. And two, you will also need to increase the risk score of that particular user. So that's time anomaly. A count anomaly is about the quantity or the volume of activity that gets done, let's say on a particular device or a server. So let's say you have a critical file server, and depending upon what has happened on that server over the last so many weeks, the system learns that what is expected from that server. Well, between 12 p.m. and 1 p.m. on Wednesdays, 100 activities get done on that file server. So that is expected. But let's say on a particular Wednesday, between 12 p.m. and 1 p.m., 1,000 activities get done. So that's unexpected. So that's a deviation, that's a count anomaly. And please note, I did not just say the volume of activities that get done on the server. I also brought in the fact that it was on a Wednesday. Because the system has to learn about what happens on different times of the day and different times of the week as well. Because what is anomalous in, let's say, the week 1 and week 2 is probably not anomalous during the last week. You can imagine, if you're from the sales team, I said you guys are from the sales team. So if you're from the sales team, during the last week, you're running towards your targets and there's heightened activity, you want to meet your targets, you might be incentivized that way. So what is anomalous from the last week is not necessarily anomalous during week 1 and week 2. And you've got to take that into account too. So that is the factor of seasonality that comes into the picture. You also have pattern anomalies where you're looking at sequence of events. Event A, event B, event C, event D. Well, is it normal for that sequence to happen? So we, in Log 360, there are multiple ways of doing this. Different vendors do it in different ways. In Log 360, what we do is we use this concept of Markov chains to ascertain whether something is anomalous. It leads to a pattern anomaly. So event A, event B, event C, event D, is it actually okay? So we will arrive at a baseline of expected pattern activity, and we will be constantly looking if that baseline is exceeded or something goes wrong, and then you'll be alerted about it. And of course, the risk score of the associated user and the device will be increased upward. There will also be a time delay factor, or a time delay factor. So over time, what's going to happen is it's going to be very dynamic in nature. As time elapses, you slowly bring the risk score down. So all of these things, the system has to be able to do it automatically. So these are some of the main SIEM use cases that we've seen being used by our customers. Let's take this attack scenario right now. In Cyprus and in multiple countries around the world, there are lots of, for example, government agencies, and they have very critical data. So this is a typical use case for an insider threat, and how the detection happens and how the response happens as well. So this is a use case over here, and how a SIEM is able to safeguard against this particular threat. Take a look at this. So these are things that could, be done in terms of detection. It can be automated, it can be manual as well. And this is the response. One extra thing that I would like to add over here in terms of detection and response is the use of both configured rules, where you as a security analyst would go and configure your own rules, but also the system having rules built in. So you don't want to be always configuring rules. As a vendor, what Log 360, what we do is as well, we are looking constantly at what is happening in the wild, and we come up with rules also. So very recently, just about 4 weeks back, we had a major release in Log 360 where we had close to 2,000 rules available for you out of the box. Now these are rules that people have been using and people have seen in the wild, So we have as many as 2,000 rules available out of the box in Log 360 that you can configure in case that is required for your organization. So that's just a matter of you going and configuring it, just selecting that particular rule, and you start looking for those threat use cases. And very soon, you're also going to come up with automated response playbooks. So this is where your SIEM solution is able to have those built-in playbooks, and you as a security analyst or an administrator can go in and for some less than ideal occurrence, you configure that playbook and the response is also automated. So these are things that you could do when it comes to your SIEM safeguards. Great, so that is one part of the presentation thus far. So we made a case for risk management and how you make decisions when it comes to your cybersecurity solutions, including IAM and SIEM. And when you do make that decision about going with an IAM or a SIEM solution, what are the things that you need to have within those solutions? We made a case for that. The other thing that I would like to talk about is how we take our SIEM and IAM game to the next level. And this is something that a lot of people are talking about right now. The advent of AI. Now, AI is just a tool. In the wrong hands, it could lead to adverse effects, but in the right hands, it can be used for all the good things. A lot of attackers, as you can well imagine, are using AI for all the wrong reasons, right? So, you had a case back in the day where you can look at an email, and if you are pretty experienced, you know that that's a phishing email. It's a malicious email. You know that very clearly. That is not the case anymore. You have people using GenAI for all these phishing attacks. You also have cases where there is polymorphous malware. Let's say a malware comes into the network and it has a way of changing its code base depending upon what it sees in the network in real time. So that it lies low, it evades defenses. There are also cases where the malware is able to detect or is able to find out the most critical files within the network and just go after those files. And it really increases its chances of success. These are things that we get to see. And these are ways in which attackers are using AI. But what you have in front of you here is predictive AI for protection and prescriptive AI for protection. One of the things that I'd like to talk to you about is proactive threat hunting. This is where you're able to use AI to find out if there are threats lurking in your network. It's a good use case actually. So now what is threat hunting? This is where you hypothesize and then test if that hypothesis is actually true or not. So you come up with a hypothesis for a security attack that may or may not have happened, and then you find out if that has happened. And can you imagine a situation where you can use AI for that? So you can actually burrow deep into your network and you can find out if that hypothesis is true or not. Predict attacker activity. So depending upon the vulnerabilities that you have in your network, the loopholes that you have in your network, can you actually graph out what an attacker's path could likely be? That is yet another use case for AI. So these are things for protection. You also have dynamic intelligent access control, where you're actually looking at a particular user, what activities they perform, and constantly adjust that access control. When it comes to detection, I already spoke about UEBA, which is more machine learning than AI. You also have attack path visualization, where let's say an attack has happened and you want to learn from that attack, and you can actually use AI to visualize that entire thing. It will graph it out for you. From point A to point Z, what really happened, it will tell you. So that is attack path visualization. Intelligent phishing identification, of course, apart from just looking for grammatical mistakes and spelling mistakes, it is also going to do something called sentiment analysis or tone analysis. It's going to analyze the tone of the email and then alert you in case something is wrong. So these are technologies that, as ManageEngine and Zoho, we are working on. Reactive AI for remediation. Take a look at this. Forensic analysis covered by deep learning, where AI is going to go deep and it's going to do all the forensic analysis for you. And this is something that we are working on, and it might be available for us as early as next year, where at click of a button, a security analyst is able to investigate a particular incident that has happened. And the AI is able to put the different events that are related to one another, it's able to put all of it together, and then come up with a case for you. So, an attack has happened, it will group all the related alerts or the related events together, and then tell you who the suspected user is, what the suspected device is, and that entire path. So, it's going to help you with that investigation. Take a look at this, immersive security for training simulations. Now, cybersecurity, we all know that the user is the weakest link. I mean, that's a cliched statement. And because of that, we have user awareness sessions happening once every year. But can you imagine a better way of doing things? As and when something less than ideal is being done by a user, can you educate that user right there, on the spot, in real time, dynamically? Well, that's what immersive security training simulation is all about. So, as and when a less than ideal task is being performed, you either have a video playing to educate that user, or you have a pop-up. All of these things can be done, and these are things that ManageEngine and of course Zoho is looking at. A digital assistant for employees, take a look at this. A data assistant exponentially raise the power of one person. So as and when, let's say, a user is doing things, they would have a digital assistant at their disposal that is going to guide them through the entire process, no matter what function they are from. So if they are from the sales team or the marketing team or the finance team, they'll have a digital assistant that empowers them. And really, the power of user is going to be really heightened. It's going to be exponential in nature. And that's what really welcomes us to a great new world. So this is how in ManageEngine we are bringing it all together when it comes to our identity fabric. You can see that these are all different elements of an identity and access management solution. And back in the day, they were all looked at separately, they were all looked at in an isolated fashion. But now, over time, what's happened is all of these different elements are coming together. And that's what leads to an identity fabric. They're all coming together in a seamless and smooth manner, and they're all working together in a very tight-knit fashion, so that you don't have to toggle between screens, one, and you get the full picture of what is happening at any point in time. So this is what is called the identity fabric. And then when it comes to our approach to security analytics, this is exactly what we are doing. So in any network, you have all of these different components, identities, endpoints, network, data, applications, and your cloud infrastructure. And all of these, they give you events and logs, metrics, traces, and telemetry. The traditional way of looking at all of this, well, you have different solutions in place, including identity security, endpoint security, and so on. These were traditionally distinct solutions that gave you all of these capabilities. But what is happening now with ManageEngine is we are bringing all of this together as a unified security platform. So you get the full picture and everything is well integrated. And on top of that, you apply technologies like orchestration, embedded AI, the marketplace, where you go beyond what is possible in a SIEM solution out of the box. So you can start programming different capabilities within the solution. So that's the marketplace. You have unified analytics as well. And suddenly, instead of looking at it as just mere capabilities or features, you start getting these security outcomes. So that's our approach as ManageEngine. And this is a list of different solutions we have in ManageEngine. There's more than 60 different software. And what we spoke about today was obviously identity and access management, where we have a solution called AD360. And we also spoke about SIAM, where we have a solution called Log360, and both of these are working as platforms. that can give you the best outcomes. Yes, so this is what I wanted to share with you today. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you so much. Just a final word. For each of you, we have provided a risk management checklist. So see if you can use that, or if it makes sense for you to use in your own organizations as you get started in your risk management journey. There's also a survey on cybersecurity that you have in your bag that's been provided for you. So this is more of a request from our end. If you take some time, there's just a few questions over there. It should not take you more than 5 minutes to do this survey. And we'll be sure to share the results of this survey with you. It's about the state of cybersecurity in Cyprus and other regions in Europe. And every solution in ManageEngine, there's a free trial, so please try it out for 30 days. And see if it makes sense for your company, and only if it does, you can always get in touch with us. My name is Ram. I've been with ManageEngine for the last 10 years. I've been in cybersecurity this entire time. I'm also there on LinkedIn, so you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Thank you.
First of all, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Okay, I hope I'm audible. Great, thank you. All right. I'm very uncomfortable, but I hope I'll be understood. Thank you. So, once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for all your presence. This is my fourth time here in Cyprus, and I can see people with the same energy, the same enthusiasm that as I always see here. As Ramesh mentioned in the morning, he said that the crowd is so energetic, and I would like to emphasize that once again. So thank you so much for being so attentive. It means a lot to us, because we have come far away, and we are here for two reasons. Number one, we wanted to give you a confidence that we as a vendor are always there to support you. Okay. And of course, our partners, the Channel IT is doing a great job here, so we want to associate with them, and we want to give you a confidence that we are always there. We are here in this land to support you. Number two, we wanted to hear many things from you. Okay. I have been with ManageEngine. As you can see, my name is Anand Palnisamy. That's what it is written here. But if I ask you to pronounce my name, I'm sure you will have a hard time because it's quite difficult for you all. So you can call me as Andy. I've been known as Andy for 17 long years. I've been with ManageEngine for all these years, and I have sailed with different portfolios of ManageEngine as well. How did we evolve to this extent is what, first of all, I would like to start with. Ladies and gentlemen, to tell you, to be very honest with you all, I travel across the globe. I go country to country, I meet customers, and I get good feedback from them. When I say feedback, I don't want any of you to say, hey, you have a product, it does a great job. Hey, you have a product, it does something good for us. No, I don't want to hear that. If anything that you want to criticize, if anything that you're not happy with the features, feel free to talk to me. I'm going to be here for another 1 week. Hopefully I'll meet everybody in person, depending upon the schedules. But I'm there to listen about your challenges. Okay? So even on stage, when I'm here, feel free to tell me about any challenges that you are facing with the products, the IAM, which includes AD360, and the SIEM, which is the cybersecurity tools that we have at ManageEngine. So I'm ready to answer your questions, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, I request you all to please, let's have a conversation. You can ask me questions. I'm here to answer. I will ask you questions as well. So this is how the session is all going to be. Okay, before getting into the actual agenda, I just would like to tell you one small information. There is going to be an interesting quiz segment, a quiz session that's going to happen once I'm done with my session. So, 3 people are going to get exciting gift. One would be the person who comes on the top of the quiz, and 2 people who are very attentive in my session. So, once again, I request you all to please ask your questions. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, let me just go ahead and let me deep dive into the session. In the morning session, Ram has explained to you so many things. He has talked about many things, including the cybersecurity, SIEM, IAM, the role of cybersecurity engineers, so on and so forth, right? Now, I am not going to go into any of the thought leadership, because I have a very limited time, so let me talk about the solution that we have at ManageEngine. Hope you all agree to it. So I'm going to talk about a few features that we have in our IAM suite of products as well as the SIEM suite of products. So I hope that it must be beneficial one, because if you have not used any of the features that I'm talking about here in my today's session, please go ahead, try it out. It would definitely have some benefits in your organization. So I'm going to talk about identities in the first place. Ram has explained way better than what I'm going to say, but I'm going to give you some introduction about the identities. What are real identities? How are you going to secure them? The strategies that you need to follow, and how ManageEngine is going to complement when it comes to securing your identities. Few information about the privileged users, because 70% of any attack that's happening across the globe, it's because of insiders. It could be an unloyal employee or an employee who wants to defame your organization. What kind of actions these privileged users are doing in your organization? Why do you need to track, and how you have to track, how ManageEngine is going to complement that? We will be discussing that as well. Endpoint MFA, Ram has explained to you once again the need of an MFA because of the recent attacks. As you can see, the conclusion is you need to have MFA on every segment, not just on the endpoint. MFA needs to be implemented every possible actions, every possible authentication that is going on in the organization. MFA is something inevitable. We will also be talking about automated responses. If at all some incident, some attack or a threat has approached your organization, how are you going to eliminate that? What actions that you will be taking in response to it? We will be discussing that as well in my today's session. So, first of all, as I said, 80% of breach involved in compromised credentials. That emphasize the importance of identity security. When I say identity security, the first thing that you all have to think about is implementing MFA. We're going to discuss that in a short while. Now, what are identities? Right? So, identities refers to everything that you have in your organization. This is not just the employees that you have. Everybody, including the contractors, your real employees, and the assets that are associated with that employees are again considered to be as identities. If you are going to secure them, think it in a holistic view. It is not just the employee security which is very important. You also have to safeguard your endpoints, your applications, your databases, so on and so forth. So, in a typical infrastructure, how would that be? Right? Identities would request for something to your IT. Right? They would call you or they would raise a ticket. Hey, I need to have an access to certain applications. I need to have an access to some database. I need to have an access to some reference links. Correct? Now, what you're going to do as a member of your IT infrastructure, you are going to validate that user, and if he is a real user, you are going to assign the respective permissions on the resources. Correct? That's the typical way how it is supposed to be. Now, if you could look at here, this is how the ecosystem of identities would work. Identities will ask you for some permissions. Now, these permissions will be given to the identities based on policies what you have in your organization. So the key word that you need to understand is policies. Policies defines everything. Every single security factors are involved in that policies. If there is a loophole in it, then you're going to be in grave danger. I'm not speaking so hard, but yes, the reality is you're going to be in a grave danger if at all there are some loopholes in such policies. This is why the terminologies comes into the picture. What are they? Zero trust, just in time, just in time access, PAM, IAM, so on and so forth. So how effectively you're utilizing these kind of terminologies is something that's very important. Okay, now that you have a strong foundation, you have a good security policies in place, how can you continuously believe that whatever the policies that you have in your organization is always complied with the compliances? This is when governance comes into the picture. So you will have to periodically validate what is happening in your organization. That is what the governance is. Then the respective reports needs to be sent to the auditors, and the thing goes in that way. Okay, now I talked about identities, I talked about policies so far. Let me just go a little bit beyond what I have said, and let me talk about the attack threat landscape. You can see that in today's environment, the attackers or the attack vectors are very sophisticated, they are persistent, distributed, and they are more targeted. I wanted to emphasize something more towards the sophistication part right here with an example. Ladies and gentlemen, the attackers no longer spend time in writing a script, break their head and writing a code. These kind of heavy lifting part has been taken care by the artificial intelligence. I hope you all agree to it. Now there is one example of such attack with respect to the generative AI, which is going to be so popular down the line. It's what you call it as evasion attack. How many of you are aware of evasion attack? Great, sir. So I see just only one person telling he is aware of it. Let me go give you an example of an evasion attack. I think Tesla. Tesla is something that's very popular in the two countries which I have just visited, Athens, Greece as well as in Malta. But I have not seen much of Tesla here in Cyprus. Is that so? Not so popular. Okay. So what is the best thing about the Tesla? Tesla has the feature where it can drive all by itself. You just have to provide the source and the destination, the car will drive all by itself. It understands everything, and it will stop where it is supposed to be, it maintains the speed, and it goes in that way. Okay. Now, in a conventional cars where the driver is operating it, you follow a pattern, isn't it? Any pattern we are following for centuries, correct? If at all the car sees a red light on a traffic signal, it is supposed to stop. That's the same framework built on these driverless cars as well. Correct? Hope you all agree. Okay. Now, the key thing what you have to understand here is there is a pattern that's followed here. If the traffic light is red, any car is supposed to stop. Right? Now, this is taken as an advantage by the intruders, and rather than breaking the security system of the car, which could be unique depending upon the manufacturer, the bad actors are going to pass a malicious command to the car from the traffic light. The traffic light is open. They are going to inject some malicious change. So what happens? A car listens to that, and instead of stopping, it's going to take the speed of 4x. That is going to cost life, right? That is how the attacks are going to be, or it could be the same way as I just explained. So that's the sophistication these attackers are having or gaining with the help of these generative AI. Okay, so enough of scaring you about these kind of actions, ladies and gentlemen. I just have 3 points to talk about in the IAM vector. How are you going to strengthen your identities? Once again, the identities I'm referring here are not just the employees that you have in the organization. It also includes the assets and the sensitive information that you have in your organization. So let's go one after the other. Strengthening your identity security, for which you have to do these things. Number one, implement MFA, enforce a strong passive policy, and the most important thing is what I have mentioned in the third point, the third one in the first point, which is strengthen your identity security. Have policies in deprovisioning a user, which means a user wants to leave the organization, have good policies implemented. So you need to follow certain actions in order to remove the complete permissions the user is having on all the resources. Let me tell you how, and I will also explain you with the help of some, I will also explain you with what we have in ManageEngine, which is the AD manager. I am not going to go much deeper into the use cases because Ram has explained you everything. Okay, so coming to the identity security, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to emphasize on zero trust. What is a zero trust in the first place? Zero trust is not a terminology, not just a terminology. It works based on the 3 principles that you're looking at right here. The first principle is never trust anyone, always verify. That doesn't mean that you always need to have a paranoid face looking at your fellow employees. No, I'm not trusting them. No. That would ruin your relationship with your colleagues, right? It's not about that. It's not about not trusting anyone. Okay? I will give you an example for the first statement that you're looking at here. Never trust anyone, always verify. Now, I am here in Cyprus. I wanted to access something in my organization back in Chennai. How do I do it? If I want to access to the CRM, which is an in-house application, how can I do that? Traditionally, how would I access something? Absolutely. VPN, right? Now, I have authenticated into my VPN. Then what will happen? My network would understand me as if I am within the perimeter of Zoho Corporation, which is in Chennai, and that's going to give all the permissions, right? It is going to allow me to access to the CRM, or if I want to run something with the administrator's prompt, everything will happen in the way as if I am in my organization. Okay. You implement zero trust. What change it is going to make here? Okay. Once again, in the same scenario, I am accessing a CRM after connecting to my VPN. If only I have accessed the CRM, there is going to be a re-authentication. My initial access is being broken into pieces, and that's going to re-authenticate me if and when required. The best example is accessing a CRM. The second situation, if I want to run something with administrator's prompt, there is going to be a re-authentication. If I wanted to access something with access the sensitive files and folders, there is going to be a re-authentication, correct? This is exactly what you call it as MFA, multi-factor authentication. Not just an MFA, you call this as adaptive MFA, conditional based MFA. If only I have come via the VPN, these MFA would appear, right? If I come from a specific IP address, if I access something with my own computer, if I access something with an IP address that's not a part of my organization, there is going to be MFA. This is exactly what you have in the application called AD self-service. Ladies and gentlemen, I gotta quickly show that to you here. You see, this is the endpoints MFA, okay? And basically, you have to authenticate into your computer by giving your domain username and password. And after that, see, there is an authenticator screen comes into the picture where you will have to verify your identities by using any of these authenticators. Now, as a matter of fact, AD Self-Service Plus supports close to 20 different authenticators into the product. Okay? So, based on what you have configured, you will have to complete this authentication and then you can come into your computer. This is how it's going. Yes, sir.
Even at, if I interrupt, even at the initial VPN stage, you can use another MFA code.
100% yes.
Mainly to avoid compromised prevention.
Absolutely. That's the same example which I was about to talk, and thank you so much for bringing that. So you see this right here in the endpoint MFA, I have the machine authentication, machine MFA, VPN MFA, and applications MFA as well. So the OWA MFA is just for your reference, but any application, as long as that supports SAML V2 authentication, can very well be integrated within our product. So you can use this product only for doing MFAs. That's something what we have right here. Okay, I gotta go back to my slide next here. Right, the next important thing as far as securing your identities is implementing a strong password policy. Okay? Now, Microsoft offers so many features in the password policies. The traditional password policy, you cannot reuse your password, there could be a restriction in the number of characters, plenty of things that could be configured in the form of fine-grained password policies, right? I'm going to show you something, what we have in our AD service. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now comes to the question section. I'm going to ask you a question right now. The best person who's going to give me an answer, he will get a gift. He or she. Okay, difference between password reset and password change. Yes, sir.
Password reset.
Mike. Yeah.
On the password change, you just change the code password. The password reset is when you, let's say, for example, this password is disabled, and for any reason you want to enable it back, so just reset.
Okay, you mean to say password reset is something that you go and reset your password? Can you elaborate that, please? I'm sorry, I think I missed your point. I think you mentioned about the keyword, but I don't know if I understood that correctly. Please.
Password reset, let's say by time. Let's say when your policy to define a password, so you just go and change it for the reset of the password can happen when it's blocked.
Okay, you mean to say a password reset Okay, I think I got the context here. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Yes.
Would it be possible that would it be possible that keyword you are after is that within a password change scope, the user has to know its old password. Sorry. When changing the password, the user needs to know his old password, while you can do a reset or unblocking without having knowledge of the previous password.
That's actually a great answer what you are mentioning. Yes, I appreciate it. Both of you gentlemen, it's a great answer. Thank you. I'm expecting something beyond what he says. Not too far away, but both of them are pretty much close to what I wanted to hear. Anybody wants to have another try? Yes.
Well, it's a different use case. In case of password reset, is maybe it's a security breach. Maybe someone's changing the password without being the real person.
Okay.
The owner of the password.
Okay, I got that point as well. See, if it is a password reset, it's only the administrator can able to do it. So there could be many ways where it could be a security concern as well, because somebody is going to do the password reset. Typically, that's how Active Directory is. When it comes to password change, it has to be the employee, because if you are doing a password change, you need to know what the old password is. Now, thank you so much, gentlemen, for giving a great answer. I really, really appreciate that once again. Now, I'm going to tell you the core difference here. Okay? Let's say I am using a password today. Today I have used my password as password at 123. That is my current password. Will I be able to change the password to the same that I have used today? No? Great, great. I appreciate that. Great, yes. Why? Why is that? Because of the password policy, what you have set in the Active Directory would always check. The password history settings will be verified when somebody changed the password. That is exactly what I would like to hear from you, but still great answers from the three gentlemen. So what is the security loophole here? Right? It is not just the statement which I would like to mention here, ladies and gentlemen. I was in UK probably like 6 or 7 years before, and I heard a case study from one of my customers said that the CFO's credential was compromised because the unloyal employee who was in the notice period happens to include his computer by resetting his password to something very simple, and for the fact that the password history setting was not verified at that time, he was able to access to his computer and he has stolen some sensitive information. Fortunately, the customers were having the product AD audit risk. That has given the clue that this person has done a password reset on the Active Directory. But the point is, the loophole is still open in any circumstances, because the administrator, a privileged user, can reset anybody's password on the Active Directory, and it's going to be a key that you're giving it to the privileged user so he can do anything. Be cautious about what's happening. Now, ADs, yes sir.
What you're mentioning about the power of administration. At the end of the day, it's about the policies and the different groups that manage different systems. Let's say you may have your administrators. I mean, one way to solve this issue, and the security and let's say the security team will be able, in case of such events, of privilege events, to resetting passwords and stuff like that, to be able to alert on a higher level. And the best policy is to have independent teams.
What is that? Sorry, I think I missed the last part. The best thing is what?
The best approach in your policies is to have independent teams that the administrators can, let's say, if they maliciously make a change, the other team, the auditors, let's say, team, will be able to detect this change and act. So basically, even the administrators that they are holding, let's say, everything, are monitored as well.
Right. That's actually a great point. Yeah, great. Okay, so I will come back to what he has said because there is something I want to talk about that as information for you all, but I will just come back to this part a little later. Ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to securing your identities, what are the other features we have in our AD self-service? Plus our application, no matter what you're doing, password reset or a password change, password history setting will always be checked. That's number one. Number two, AD self-service plus application is tightly integrated with a third-party open source platform known as Have I Been Pawned? Now with that feature, if your user is resetting his password through our application, he cannot use any of the breached password. Okay? On top of it, password at 123, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This cannot be the user's password because we have an option for dictionaries. You can add a dictionary which contains some prohibited passwords or anything which cannot be the user's password. So we have plenty of features, mechanisms available in that tool that will ensure if you do a password reset through our product, it's going to be 100% safe and secure. On top of it, we also have a single sign-on. This tool can also act as a single sign-on. So as long as you log into the computer with MFA, you can access to any application that the user is associated with. You have everything right here. Okay, so we talked about identities, we talked about password. Now coming to policies. Okay. Now once again, this is going to be an open question to everyone. I want you to please tell me, how do you handle a user's offboarding? If a user leaves the organization, what are the process that you would follow? I know the basic processes, you would disable that user. Please don't mention that. What else you would do and why are you doing that is what I'm trying to understand. Anybody who wants to volunteer? Anyone can volunteer, please. I'm talking about users offboarding. How do you handle the users offboarding situation? Yes, sir. Once again, you. I appreciate that.
Okay. First of all, we need to have a list of where the user has access.
Yes, great.
So if you have this list, what you see, the first step is to disable the user.
Yeah.
And depends on the organization. There are some restrictions. Let's say you may need to keep the user on your systems disabled for an X amount of time.
Oh.
That's because of compliance reasons. And eventually the user, after some time, has to be removed.
Right.
That's the process. But the important thing is to have a list of where the user has access.
Fantastic. That's a great answer. Thank you so much. Anybody else wants to add something? Yes, sir. Please. Reset the password. Great. Fantastic. Yeah. Great thing. So, this gentleman has said two things, right? You need to understand the access the users are having. Okay? So if the user wants to leave the organization, as I said, disabling of that user would be the primary thing. Okay, you would all disable that user, but is that really going to take away all the permissions that the user is having on the organization? Absolutely no. I have a use case right here. You see this right here? Okay. Disable is not lockout. Okay. Disabling of that user is not going to take away the actual permissions the users are having on the sensitive files and folders what you have. Okay? Now if I go a little bit deeper into it, ladies and gentlemen, just to give you a context on why do you need to do something apart from disabling of that user as a process of offboarding the employees. Look at this. SIDs, security identifiers. It's nothing but an alphanumeric value that you can see like this. Smart employees were able to access to the sensitive files and folders without logging into the files and folder actually. Okay? With the help of SIDs, they can still gain access to the sensitive files and folders is what the point I would like to emphasize here. Now, I have done a few webinars on this particular use case. If you need to get that article or if you want to get some insight about how can you compromise the sensitive files and folders without giving the username and password with the help of the SIDs, please do reach out to me. I can explain that, but you have to post right here. So, what is the best thing that you can do? You will have to, like the gentleman has said, you will have to understand the permissions the users are having on the sensitive files and folders, and that needs to be revoked. As a policy, you also have to go to an extra mile in understanding what are all the applications the users are having an access to. That needs to be revoked. And this gentleman has very correctly pointed out, you will have to reset the user's password. Then, the most important thing, you will have to revoke the group membership of that user. You have to do all of these things. Now, on the economical standpoint, you will have to revoke Microsoft 365 license as well. Correct? You will have to follow all of these things, ladies and gentlemen. This is an idea that I'm giving it to you. You have to go and tweak your policies when it comes to offboarding a user. Now, see what we have in AD Manager Plus. Once again, AD Manager Plus is for Active Directory Management and Reporting software. It will help you to do everything that I have just told you. I hope that the screen will populate as quick as possible, but I tell you, the point I would like to emphasize is if you go to the Admin tab, ADMIN, you get an option called Delete Disable Policy. Everything that I have just told you is available right here. So you see this? Move home folders, move users to a different container, remove users. Sorry, thank you. I'm very sorry. I hope this is visible. Great. So you see this one? Remove the direct members. When it comes to the mailbox, you can either convert the mailbox to a shared mailbox, or you can enable forward to so that the other people will have an access to it. And you see this one right here, revoke Microsoft 365 license is available here. Okay, so the option is available here. And you want to do a password reset, that's available here as well. What not? Everything is available here in the policy. All you're doing is, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to access to the AD Manager Plus and just disable that person this tool will take care of everything. Now, one thing I told you is not available here. Revoking permissions on the shared folder is not available. If you could, once again, if I just show this here, that option is not here. Don't worry, don't worry. What we have is, if I go to the automation tab, we have something called as event-driven automation. In this section, you have the option for creating an automation here. If the action is disabling of user, or say move user or anything that we can select right here, there is something called as orchestration which you can configure in the product. In the orchestration, we have the option for selecting remove all NTFS permission. You have it right here. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be a matter of just a minute to configure within AD Manager Plus and use it in your organization so that the tool will take all of these actions for you. You don't have to do anything. The tool will do that for you. Now, similarly, when it comes to revoking permissions on the applications, all you have to do is you will have to configure that in our product. We have this option right here, applications integration. Configure your application within the product. If you ask me what is the criteria for configuring these applications, whatever the application that you have in your organization, the criteria is very, very simple. As long as your application supports REST API, we can help you with that integration. When I say we, I am from ManageEngine, my dear friend Joseph from Channel IT, Lois is from Channel IT. We have lots of technical expertise available. It's again a matter of 2 minutes. As long as you have the API details, we can absolutely help you to configure any application within this platform so you can do all of these actions. Okay, I told you revoking permissions, so on and so forth, right? Everything will be done right here. What are the other use cases when it comes to application integration? Number one, ticketing software. All or any kind of Active Directory related activities can be done with the help of your own ticketing tool. It can be done. You don't have to come to AD Manager Plus. Do it within your ticketing tool. What kind of actions? Assigning permissions to the sensitive folder for any user who raises a ticket, removing group membership, removing permissions, creation of users, disabling of users, everything. As far as the identity management is concerned, it can be done within your ticketing software. That's number one. Number two, automation. Let's say you have a PeopleSoft HRMS tool. You do something within your within your HRMS tool. This tool has the ability of fetching the data from your application and it can help you with creation of users. Ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to creation of users, let's say users onboarding, right? Users onboarding is not just about creating an account on the primary directory service. It could be the Active Directory, Entra ID, Oracle eSuite or anything. There are different stages when it comes to provisioning a user, right? Stage number one, you will have to create the user on the primary directory service. Stage number two, you will have to facilitate that user in email, right? You have to create a mailbox. Then permissions needs to be assigned, right? That's the stage two. Stage three, you have to provision that user on third-party applications that you have. It could be a CRM, it could be any essential application where your user needs to have an access to. The stage number 4 is very, very critical thing which needs to be managed as well, which is nothing but permissions. What kind of permission the user, the new user needs to have on the third-party application, correct? It all can be done with the help of our tool, with AD Manager, okay? So we have this option right here. From where you want the user information to be fetched. It could be the ticketing software, HRMS tool, or it could be anything from where the information could be fetched, and the Active Directory, the user account will get created. Then the same user will get created on the third-party application. What permission you want the user to have on those applications, you can have it defined within our application. The tool will take care of that. That's how the tool is. It's extremely powerful when it comes to the identities. You can very well trust this application. Now, I'm sure this could be an information for you all. If you have not used AD Manager Plus in the past, I would recommend to go to your office, install it for this reason. I go to the Home tab and see what we have here. This is exactly what Ram has mentioned, risk analyzer. You remember he talked about the risk heat map. It could be achieved with the help of this particular module. I'm not asking you to purchase AD Manager Plus today. I'm not here to do a business. I'm here to teach technologies. So, I'm not here to teach anything. I'm sorry, I apologize, because you guys are going to teach me at some point of time, but I would like to emphasize on what we have within our application. This is something that you all wanted to know. This is what we have in Risk Score Analyzer. This is going to understand what information you have in the Active Directory. If there is a misconfiguration, then the tool is going to highlight that for you in the form of a risk score. If the risk score is very high, then right away here, the tool will allow you to take some action. It includes users, computers, group, GPO, security, and this configuration. You have it right here. Okay? And let's say we have this. So if I want to run that as a report, I will get the option, and what action I need to take, you will have it right here on the same screen. This is exactly what we have in the form of Risk Score Analyzer, ladies and gentlemen. Please go install it and configure your Active Directory as per the standard. The feature is readily available. Now, I would like to conclude my IAM session by explaining one other feature, very important thing that you all have to know. We have this particular module, Access Certification Campaign. What is this going to do? Okay, now you have groups, you have sensitive files and folders, but many people might have some access to it, right? Okay. So NTFS permission, group membership, and mailbox permission. Down the line, we will be including third-party applications as well, which is something that we are on the development phase right now. So what is this going to do? The scheduled campaign is going to execute, and it's going to give a report to people's like managers of that group, or managers of that users, or the owners of the folder, or it could be anyone whom you have pick and choose within the application. So periodically, the tool will run this campaign, and it is going to ask the managers or administrators or the person whom you have chosen, and it's going to tell them, hey, these are all the access that these users are having on the sensitive files and folders. please approve me so the access will be revoked. If not, give me the commit, I will have it updated. This is what the tool is going to do. Okay, so you can forget about users having some permissions on the files and folder, users who are all belonging to any privileged group that you have. See, what I told you earlier, if you have some privileges on the Active Directory, it's like you're giving them the key, right? Now, this campaign is going to enable you to revoke it if and when required. You can run the scheduler once in a month, once in a week, once in every 6 months, or once in a year, just to make sure only the right person have right permissions on these resources. This is exactly what the tool is going to do for you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to conclude my IAM session right now. Any questions for me so far? Any questions? Yes?
Do you develop clients?
Use what? I'm sorry.
Do you develop?
Once again, I'm not. Joseph, can you
In the tools, the platform, do you have a specific tool for compliance, like a compliance maturity model, compliance so that top management or tools that are
the compliance matrix assessing your infrastructure, or overview of compliance report that you want to get it from your organization?
the details that
Okay.
the basic, I mean, because there is a detailed audit, there is an investigation for a specific issue,
Yeah.
there is
Okay, yeah, well, we have this one which I just explained to you. We have the risk exposure management, which is going to give you the details about all kinds of misconfiguration with respect to NIST compliance, because we have made it based on certain framework, and that's going to give you the accurate information. So if you have kept your identities hygiene by having a very low risk score, which means your environment is absolutely safe and secure. If not, then take actions within the product. That's number one. Number two, we have the SIEM tool using which you can run all kinds of audit report, all kinds of compliance report that are needed of another. For example, DORA, NIST2, GDPR, ISO, we have some predefined compliance report readily available, using which you can send it to the auditors, give them the report, hey, this is what my infrastructure is, that can be done. And even in the same section, you have options for understanding you get an option for getting the risk score on the same compliance as well. So you can make some changes. We have that. Thank you. Right, so thank you very much. And let me, I don't have much of time in running you over the presentation. So I will just talk about the key product here, which is Log 360 on the SIEM section. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, Ram did explain to you about attacks, right? Attacks can come in any form, you never know, right? So all you have to do is you have to be prepared for the worst. That's what even the zero trust is emphasizing you. You remember what I said on the zero trust, always verify. And then there is one other thing which I wanted to show you real quick on the auditing part. Okay, assume the breach has already happened is one of the key principles of a zero trust. Ladies and gentlemen, on that aspect, how would you react to a breach? How would you react to an attack? Anybody? Okay. Okay. So basically, what you would do, you will safeguard the system, right? You would either isolate the system, or you would, make sure that the attack is not so contagious, so the other system will also get infected. And the most important thing is you have to do a root cause analysis on what went wrong. You will have to go and check the audit trials to understand what went wrong, and you have to prepare a documentation on this is how the attack has happened, this is how it has started, and it has ended with this thing. That's how, in general, attacks needs to be, breach needs to be handled. Okay. Coming to that point, ladies and gentlemen, Ram did explain, my dear friend Ram has explained to you in the morning about a SIEM solution. A perfect SIEM solution should be capable of getting logs from every single log sources that you have. I hope you all agree to it, right? It doesn't matter what infrastructure you have. You might even have an IoT device, but a perfect SIEM solution should get the logs from the IoT device. Now, what do we have here in our event log analyzer? If you could just take a look at the screen. I hope the screen is visible. We have all of these manufacturers that are supported. This includes the Windows, cloud sources, databases, networking devices, ME application, and we have plenty of things that are supported here, right? So how is this going to work? We collect the data from a networking device, and what we do, we have a default parser that will convert the raw log into a human readable format, and it will show them here in the reports tab. So it's very easy for you to set up the event log analyzer. All you have to do is configure the right source. You will get it here in the report section. Now, what if you have an IoT device? You have a, let's say, OT device in your organization. The tool will still discover that device, but you won't get it as a report by default. There is something little extra that you have to do. Number one, you will have to configure the tool to parse the information taken from that device with the help of custom log parser. So the tool supports, or the tool has the ability for creating your own log parser in the tool, so that information will be taken, and then you will see them here in the report section. So that is absolutely available. So no matter what kind of device that you have, it will be supported by our tool, and you will get them here in the reports tab. Okay, coming to the compliance section, very important thing. You see this right here? We have risk exposure, risk posture. This is available. So anything that is not as per the requirement, this tool is going to give you the risk posture for the entire infrastructure. That's number one. And you have some predefined compliance report, including PCI DSS, GDPR, ISO, whatnot. Okay, I'm not able to see the important DORA here. DORA is not available. Don't worry, don't worry. We have this option where you will have an option for creating a custom compliance report within the product. So that will take care of any custom compliances that you wanted. You have it right here. Still, in a couple of months time frame, NIS2 and DORA will be a predefined report right here. We are working on that. Number three, Ram spoke about detecting a threat from your organization. Now, how could that be done? He did mention event 1, event 2, event 3, or event 1 is taken from the firewall, event 2 is taken from the workstation, event 3 is taken from the files and folders. There are different sources from where information needs to be collected, right? Now, what we have here is a correlation, one of a very important feature of a SIEM solution. We have it right here in our product. We have abilities to achieve with the help of predefined rules that you can see right here. We have close to 149 rules. Various attacks could be identified with the help of these predefined rules, and you have the ability for creating your own correlation group. That's something you have it here. Now for creation of your correlation group, it's not a rocket science anymore. You don't have to write a script, you don't need to write a code. All you have to do is pretty much like what Ram has said. This is something taken from Windows. This is something I have taken from networking device. This is something I have taken from SQL. And see, I have created a correlation rule in no minute. Okay? You can very well create a correlation rule as long as you know the logic. You can have it created. That's going to do the magic. Now, what happens after the detection? Then comes alerting, right? You have to send the alert to the administrator. That's number one. Number two, it has to be created as a ticket in your ticketing software, for which we do have integrations. Now going to the alerts tab, we have the option for creating an alert profile where you can define the severity. You can very well integrate your ticketing software and it could be raised as a ticket. Then comes the actions part. You see the tool is going to take all of these actions. It is not just a detection, it is not just sending an alert, it can help you in taking actions as well. If you ask me, is this a SOAR capability? Not what you're looking at here is the SOAR. What am I going to do now is what you call it as a SOAR. I'm going to show that to you right now. We can help you in creating a workflow. You see this right here. And sequence of actions could be taken. This is exactly what you call it as a SOAR. And you have it right here. So what kind of action that you wanted to take, you have it readily available. We even have integration with Endpoint Central, which can help you in identifying vulnerabilities. We have UEBA module in Log 360, which can detect anomaly. So if an anomaly is detected on the computer which is identified as vulnerable, this tool will deploy the patch immediately on that computer. That is how the tool is so powerful. We have all these integrations which can make it to happen. So this is the alert which is going to do that. And finally, investigation that you have to do, correct? What we have, ladies and gentlemen, we have investigation workbench. If at all a script has been executed on a computer, you wanted to investigate on what went wrong, you see all these options are readily available. It is definitely a feature. I'm sure your SOC analyst would love it because we give the complete history of that, of the action the script has performed. All kinds of processes that has been initiated because of that script is available right here. So it's a perfect choice if at all you wanted to investigate on what went wrong, you have readily available right here. And on top of it, I'm going to conclude the session, ladies and gentlemen. We have integrations with third-party threat sources, including VirusTotal, Constellar, so on and so forth. So if at all there is any threat has approached the organization, that is going to give you the risk score, which you can see right here, and it gives you complete information of that particular source. And if at all the information of any of your employees has been leaked on the DART website, this is going to give that data as well. It gives you the recommendation and it can take action as well. So this is exactly what we have. And one last thing before I complete the session. Okay, you have any questions? Any questions so far? I'm really sorry, I've taken a little bit of time. If you have other questions, I'm here to help you. So, we have a tool in the Log 360 that will help you to secure your data. We call it as Data Security Plus, which can do an analysis of all kinds of stale folders, least used folders, inactive folders, so on and so forth. So you will have a complete picture of who is accessing what, the sensitive data, and you want to secure some sensitive information needs to be secured by not allowing them to download it to the local computer or not allowing them to upload it to any cloud application. That's what the CAS-B module we have in the Data Security Plus that Ram has explained to you. You have all kinds of security features available in the perfect SIM solution called the Log 360. That is the point I would like to emphasize, ladies and gentlemen. I think I'm pretty much done here. If you have other questions, please feel free to approach me or Loises or Joseph at any point of time. We are there to help you. So, thank you so much. And before I give the stage to my dear friend Ram, there is going to be a quiz. It's going to take just a very little time. I'm sure you will find it very interesting. The quiz, the winner is going to have a gift. Thank you so much, and you will have a great day.